whatever generation takeover. Like, I thought it was going into a middle school auditorium right there. It was just everyone's face planted in their phone. Come on, look somebody in the eye.
We've been told we're an enthusiastic people.
You are. That's a fact. They're enthusiastically looking at your phone, collectively in a group. There's 25 sets of eyes, and not 2 are paired together.
Structurally, it's tough.
Yeah. All right, I'll let you talk.
So do you have an update on? I'm sorry. I know.
You got
Okay.
Gary's no longer with us.
Teammates, okay? If you guys haven't noticed, okay, injuries happen. We have to have the next man step up, so there we go.
Well, that answers my question. Any updates on Cater or Keon? Are you optimistic about them practicing and playing this week?
I'm optimistic with those human beings. Just knowing that, we just have a good collection of players on this team that I can trust how bad they want to play. It killed them not to play in this last one, so I feel good about it in that if it's feasible, they'll make the outing. So they've done a good job progressing. We'll see.
Mike, I was curious with the trade deadline coming up next week. Can you kind of take us in a little bit into the dynamic between you and Chris in terms of, communicating, potential moves? Are you suggesting stuff to him? Is he kind of briefing you daily? How is that back and forth kind of going?
Absolutely not. No. Just a little insight. So I just kick the door in and say we need X, Y, or Z. No, it's one of the best things about working in this role, in this organization, is my relationship with Chris. We're both always just trying to do the best thing for the team. That is the flat line. We take that responsibility serious. So he's always looking into everything because it's one of those type jobs where it's like you spend time on the things that actually get done, probably 1% of what you're actually working on. So he's going through all that stuff constantly and then keeping me abreast when things are real enough or when he knows that it could potentially get real. So we need to start talking about a decision. So those things are typically every day of the week he's talking about just something that's going on or something that he's heard from other teams or whatever. Unless it's Tuesday, he always makes sure that he nor anybody else is bothering me on Tuesday. So I haven't heard from him yet today, but yesterday was Tuesday. So.
Like I know not going with Rowe for Brandon Jones on Sunday was about game day packages.
Mm-hmm.
With a week of prep, do you anticipate using those same packages that we saw against Pittsburgh, or possibly moving Rowe into that spot?
Well, let me just tell you what we're doing defensively this week. It's one of my favorite parts of the system, which. I think it's to the credit of all the defensive coaches and, starting with Josh, with how they take people's strengths and utilize them in a multitude of ways. From an offensive perspective, it makes it very difficult because you'll see people move around, and those packages are ever-changing week by week. And again, I'll double down on it. As a matter of fact, Eric had 2 of his best days of practice, specifically at the end of the last week, and he's doing some real good stuff. But it has to do with all the tools that you have in your toolbox and what you're playing and why you're playing it and what role they have to fit within that given set of circumstances. So I know he'll be involved, and that's. If you want to just get the whole defensive game plan, we can just head down the hallway after this and knock that out.
Mike, I know you want to look into, and I know you've been thinking about
why the yards per play on offense are quite high and yards per game on offense are quite high. But where I'm going with this, points per game are not quite as high as those other categories.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you've come to realize and things that you think can change that moving forward?
Well, I think right before our very eyes, I think I feel it every game. You guys feel it, and you don't even know it, that we're doing a good job taking advantage of some explosive opportunities. So we are getting, which every team, every offense tries to do, and that's usually the hardest thing to get accomplished. But I think as that's the name of the game for good teams in this league. It's the simplest formula, but it happens every single year, and it seems like people miss it, which is there's so many distractions that occur. Just think about it from an individual standpoint. Am I playing enough? How did I play this last game? I got extra family in town. All this stuff. The teams that are good get better during the season, and it's hard to, because there's so many other things that can take your mind, and you're tired. It's 6 days a week for players, 7 days a week. So all of those things, when we're better at our fundamentals within, and I'm talking about every position involved in the run game, when we're collectively better at that, when we're better at executing our fundamentals, I think you'll start to feel, because there's some times that we'll go down and we won't punt for 3 or 4 series consecutively, and then you start punting for 3 possessions in a row. It's because the fundamentals are a little off. So when our game gets better, because I think most of those yards are a factor of our ability to get those chunk plays. We need to sustain drives more, be better in the red zone, better at all of it, which just comes down to being better. And you're not given that, you earn it.
Just the update on Brandon Jones placed on IR yesterday. Is this something you expect to keep him out for the rest of the season?
Yeah, it was his ACL, and I don't not planning on for him to return this season, which you really, in situations like this, I feel terrible, absolutely terrible for a guy that was playing at a very, very high level. The good news about him in particular is when things like this happen to people like him, they tend to come out finding a way to be better somehow, some way. But he was, today, this morning, watching it with the team, watching some of our game, putting it to bed, it was you could hear like the hurt with the team when his highlights would come on, because there was a ton of them. So, I do know that people like him end up finding a way to be even better than they were before. But it's a shame, because I don't think it's hard to give the credit to what he was doing, or that it deserves, to what he was doing on the field for our group, and the whole team definitely felt that.
I wanted to ask you about Cedric Wilson. Yeah, he's been on the field for, I think, about a fifth of your offensive snaps. Is it just a matter of you guys have a ton of weapons? Is there something he could be doing better?
No, he's progressing in the offense. There was also a portion of the season that he got a little dinged up with his ribs that he was playing through, and we're kind of limited in his usage there. But given circumstances, it's less about what he hasn't done. He's getting better and better every week, and will continue to become more and more featured within our offense. But it's not about what he hasn't done, and more about what a guy like Trent Sherfield has done. Those are things that you don't go into a season. That's why I don't magnetize and stare at depth charts, because that's a very fluid thing. When you're asking players to sacrifice all that they sacrifice, and when you're, when they're putting themselves on the line, they have to know that it's not only appreciated, but the bottom line will be whatever's on the tape that given week. We'll get more opportunities to be on tape because those are the guys that are going to get the most opportunities. So he'll continue to progress his role. I'm comfortable with where he's at in working on his game, and should expect to see more from him. I'm expecting that, and I think he's expecting that as the season progresses.
Mike,
what's your message?
Mike, it's been pretty eye-opening to see the numbers Tyreek and Jalen have put up. I know you had high expectations for them coming in, but has anything they've done as a duo surprised you or stood out, at this point?
I think their acceptance of the burden that is high expectations. A lot of people feel as though it's, it's a gift or like it's so cool. What if you wanted to be a star player? Well, star players have to really put the most on their shoulders with their given preparation each week. They can't afford to just take a game off. And then when pressure situations happen, they have to perform. I think their commitment and yearning for wanting to be in conversations for duos and stuff, that all of those things, that has been the most surprising on the field. And with that, they've also been extremely coachable. I don't think we've seen nearly the best from them in terms of, I don't know about numbers, but you talk about them being able to make plays that other people can't. I don't think we've totally seen all of that even yet. I think they would agree with that, and that's been surprising because you just don't know until you know. And they are great athletes, but more than that, they're committed teammates, and they have a lot of commitment from a ton of people in that locker room that are doing all of the right things so that they can have that production. So it's cool for the whole team.
You mentioned, Coach, if I could just quickly follow house, sorry about that.
Only that seat does that.
You mentioned coachable for those guys. I think Tyreek kind of raved about the scheme, helping them and him in particular have a lot of success. I'm curious what it's been like for you as a play caller.
No, he just does that just so he can get more targets. It's a smart business play. I think it's like adapting to really the circumstances. You're trying to solve a puzzle, and that's ever evolving, and that's different defensive presentations and what the guys are good at. But also, I think it's always funny when players talk about scheme, and but they are part of the scheme. Like, the only reason the scheme is existing is because they're executing it, and somebody has to learn it. And if you guys haven't noticed, we motion a ton. We have a ton of different formations that can give defenses, the intent is, they'd have to speak on if they actually do, but the intent is to give trouble to the defense. Well, that can be a trouble for offense if you let it. So they are, I think they're coming into their own really as professionals too, understanding how you have to approach that, how they have to commit for the scheme to look anything like it does, and then just how to go about their business and the impact they have on their other teammates and how they prepare. But they are as part of the scheme as anybody.
Mike, what's your message to the team this week just about the Lions? Make sure this isn't overlooked. Obviously, it's a team that's struggled so far this season.
It goes to one of the lessons that is almost weekly, that is really close to all of my fundamental pillars of belief of the game of football. Is whatever people want to say, we're defined by our tape and the stuff that we do on Sundays. That is the record that will leave, how we do things, what we do on tape. And so when I look at the Detroit Lions tape, all I see is a team that makes a lot of plays on offense, that fortunately for the opponents, they have made some mistakes along the way, but they are one game away from being as good on offense production-wise as anybody in the league. And then defensively, I was actually surprised. I try not to look at any statistical stuff until I've at least taken a couple games, and I was surprised at the numbers, because the tape is a competitive, fully committed unit that you see strain and activity and disruption the entire game. So it's pretty easy for me with the team, because they've gotten used to me by now, where I'm just going to bombard them with tape and let that set the story for what we're playing. And maybe a lot of people don't really realize it, but you cut the tape on, you see some things that are as good as anybody that we've played in certain areas, and that they're hoping, they're begging for us to take them lightly. And a team like that with tape like that, I don't think anybody has any plans to take this team lightly whatsoever.
Last question. How's he doing?
We're doing better. He really, we knew the game before that he was going to have a big game from how we're going to operate as a defense. He rose to the challenge. Got nicked in the fashion or in the process, but hoping that we're going to get him back on the field here soon. Optimistic about Sunday, but just because I know where his game was at, he was in a really good place, and he wants to get back there as soon as possible. So I know he'll do whatever it takes.